All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger coming live from the WHP 580 studio, 540-0580. That's the talk line number, 540-0580. If you have a legal question, call in. We'll answer here on the air. As you know, I filled in for Bob Durgan yesterday. So last night I was trying to figure out what day of the week it was, right? Because usually if I'm on the radio in the afternoon, then it's Sunday the day after. So it's like Groundhog Day. Anyhow, here I am, 540-0580. If you have a divorce question, a custody question, if you've been a juror in a trial and you want to tell us about your experience, whatever you want to talk about, we're happy to get you on the air here. Personal injury accident, if you know someone was in a car accident, a fatality, or just hurt themselves a little bit, what are their rights? I had somebody call me yesterday to point somebody in my direction who's fighting with an insurance company because they don't want to pay a claim. The problem is it looks like the mechanic who was doing the work is going to jail for some kind of fraudulent scams he was running for overbilling insurance companies. So this guy's caught in the crossfire. 540-0580. Call in with your legal questions. Carl Rominger here. Steve, what's going on?
Hey, Carl. I was listening in on your, I didn't get to hear it all, but a lot about the 14th Amendment when you were doing Durgan's show yesterday.
Yeah.
And I had a young colleague, law student friend of mine, and this whole discussion came up about gay rights and all that, and she basically asked the professor, well, how exactly is the person being discriminated against? A gay man can marry any woman he wants. A lesbian woman can marry any man she wants. She has the exact same right that I have.
Yeah, except she can't pick a partner of her choice if they're of the same sex. So the discrimination is in the inability to choose something that you might otherwise choose. Because by your logic, the First Amendment could be extended or retracted, rather, by saying, well, if the government says you can't talk about this, but if everybody can't talk about it, then nobody's rights are being restricted. You see the logic there?
No.
Well, okay. Here's a new rule. You cannot say anything bad about President Obama. Now we all have the same rights. So how's anybody's rights being trampled on?
Well,
right.
In Canada, that's kind of interesting because in Canada already, churches and pastors are being discriminated against. Now, they don't have the First Amendment rights, but it's considered hate speech. In the one case, they merely put a bulletin board up with 3 Bible verses.
Right.
And they were sued for, hate speech.
And
but this would be the only time in history where, that just because of somebody's who they want to have sex with, and it wouldn't have, the person wouldn't have to be gay. He could, is he bisexual? Is he trisexual? What?
Right. No,
how do you prove it?
Well, that's the issue. I mean, but the problem is it just depends on how you look at what a right is. I think the overarching concern, though, is governmental interference in private decisions. So historically, for instance, we've said that government can't come into your bedroom and tell you how often you can have sex or how you can have sex. Here, the extension is government can't tell you who you can have sex with. And the next extension is government can't tell you who you can enter into a civil union with, because that's what marriage is. It's a civil contract.
Well, yeah, but don't all laws discriminate by their nature?
And that's the issue in the 14th Amendment is you can discriminate, and you only have to have a rational basis. However, if it's a suspect class like race, then you have to survive a standard called strict scrutiny. And then if it's a gender-based issue, like the case I talked about yesterday with Oklahoma discriminating about age between men and women, so girls could drink younger, women at lower drinking age, the court said you can't do that. You can't discriminate between men and women as a legitimate class unless you can overcome an intermediate hurdle, which is more than a rational basis but less than strict scrutiny. Now, the only time, and I said this yesterday, the only time strict scrutiny has been on a race-based issue overcome was when we interred the Japanese, and that was challenged, and the Supreme Court found that national security trumped the the 14th Amendment protections for the Japanese folks who were interred. So if you understand it, the big issue isn't can you discriminate? The question is under what circumstances can you, and what government's burden is in that case. So we know that you can round up the Japanese and put them in camps if you're at war with Japan and the court's going to give a free pass to the king. I call him the king these days, right? To do it.
Yeah.
And that's a shame in a way, because if a person can kill anybody they want, and this is a whole side story, right? And they don't have to use the processes of law, then they're a king again. And I think we're dangerously close to making the President of the United States a king. But anyhow, coming back to this, the only question then is what standard do we apply to government when it comes to gay marriage? And if we apply the rational basis, then the 14th Amendment clearly allows the government to make marriage between one man and one woman on the rational basis that marriage is about reproduction.
But yet, shouldn't the states have the right to define what marriage? I mean, and that's the problem here. We keep calling it marriage. It's not marriage. Since the beginning of time, marriage is between a man and a woman.
Well, I don't know if from the beginning of time or not. A lot of cultures didn't even have a marriage.
Well, I mean, and some also practice polygamy.
Right, and that's
some practice, cannibalism, but.
Well, I know, I understand, and I'm just saying nothing is as certain as we would like it to be. Now, remember, I actually told Durgan this the other day. The origin of marriage is actually to bring a husband or to give a husband. It's interesting. It doesn't even talk about a woman or a wife, the origin of the word. So theoretically, you're just bringing two husbands in a gay marriage or two wives. But I don't know the answer. All I'm trying to tell you is, and I don't really care what the answer is. I just want government to stay out of as much stuff as possible. And that's an interesting question about the state power.
Yeah, and here's the problem then, with someone, a Christian as myself, who sent their children to public school. And as we know, this is being done now. This is being jammed down their throats from a very young age that, this is fine. This is the way it should be. Your parents are wrong. Don't do this. And now you're going back to the power that the state has. And, in England, I think the age of consent's now down to like 11 or 12, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and the other problem you run into, and I just don't know the answer to it, but the other problem is how much power they need to give the states. So I'll give you an example. Let's just turn the tack to the healthcare debate for a minute. Most commentators agree, including the people fighting the federal government on healthcare, that any of the states could impose the same rules easily without any legal challenge. It's just a federalism issue. And that's always a danger, too. So,
well, people used to leave Pennsylvania to get married in Maryland. I know quite a few couples that did that back in the day.
And that's an issue of states' rights and how strong do you want states' rights to be? Because when states' rights get too strong, you end up in a catch-22 and start looking a lot like Europe, where they can't even keep a unified currency. I'm guessing.
Right.
I'm guessing, right?
Well, as long as we keep arguing about it, I guess it's not solved yet.
Steve, it's a question where you draw the line. So I'll give you the death penalty is a great example. We used to apply the death penalty to a lot more things than we do now. Now, some things we have great consensus on and others we don't. And I think most people would agree you don't apply the death penalty to an accidental murder, right? We could all agree on that.
Right.
I mean, and then if it's self-defense, but it wasn't really legitimate self-defense, we still don't give the death penalty. So we've got it narrowed down to a very small class of murder. And now in the last 30 years, we've been narrowing it down to who can even be eligible for that class of murder. So if you're a mentally disabled citizen below a certain IQ, you probably can't get the death penalty anymore because we don't believe you can get a fair trial because of your diminished capacity, your ability to be observed by the jurors and figure out what was in your heart may be skewed by that. That's actually part of the basis for that decision. Anyhow, my point being is everything's always evolving. And, historically, and somebody posted on my Facebook page, what did he say? He said, do you really think same-sex marriage is a societal evolution equal to segregation and suffrage? And the answer is, I don't know, because if you'd lived in those times, you probably would have had a different view of it, of either segregation or suffrage, and people would have been vehemently on one side or the other. But they seem so silly now, right?
Well, but yet, and I know people of color who get very upset when you equate the two, gay marriage and.
I know, and I've been with African Americans and and Jewish folks when they've gotten into fights over what's worse, slavery or the Holocaust. And both sides seem to stake out their position pretty absolutely. I got to go to break, my friend. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Carl. Bye.
We'll get back from break. We'll talk with Doug, 540-0580. Hey, Carl Rominger coming back at you, 540-0580, answering your legal questions. Doug, I'll be right with you. But right now I want to join Michael Parks at the Mega Car Sale. What's going on?
Mega car sale, Carl. Colonial Park Mall, top of the Colonial Park Mall parking lot. This is the final day for the Faulkner Mega Car Sale, the Faulkner family of dealerships. You know, all the ones from Honda and Toyota and Mazda, they're all out here. They brought out all their models. There are hundreds of them up here to choose from. So if you're looking for a great, cool car for summer, maybe you want something sporty, you know, something you tool past Carl Rominger's house with the top down and the radio blasting, they've got it over here. Or else they've got those big bad trucks like Carl has. You can pick up one of those. SUVs, luxury cars, they're Mercedes, BMWs, all kinds, all makes, all models, and all price ranges.
That car.
And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people out here. It's a beautiful day to come out car shopping. And like I said, these guys are really ready to deal. So this is the time to buy. This is the place to buy. The Faulkner Mega Car Sale. We're going to be here until 2 o'clock this afternoon. Got lots of WHP 580 stuff, so stop by and see us. Michael Parks, Mega Car Sale, Colonial Park Mall, WHP 580.
All right, Michael, over at the Colonial Park Mall.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, I saw a really good-looking brunette in a convertible today, by the way. I just want to tell you that.
She's still here.
Well, I know where mine is. I watched her drive away, but I think she's going to drive back later. All right, good luck.
All right, see ya.
Yeah, Mega Car Sale. That's a good deal. Doug, you're on the air.
Okay. Hey, Carl. Thanks for taking my call. Here's my situation. In the end of March, my wife was in an accident on her motor scooter, seriously injured. And when I called the insurance company that we had the insurance on the scooter with to file a claim, they informed me that in Pennsylvania, you cannot get medical insurance on a motorcycle policy. And that since I had a separate policy on the scooter, I couldn't make a claim against my auto insurance with the same company. But speaking with a colleague at work who's been riding motorcycles for decades in Pennsylvania, he tells me that's not so. You can have medical insurance on a motorcycle policy. I just wonder, what is the truth there?
My belief has always been that you can have medical insurance on a motorcycle policy.
I'm sorry, did you say can or cannot?
Can.
Okay.
In fact, I'm pretty sure you can. But the answer is we'd have to read the actual policy language. So usually what would happen in a case like yours where you're stuck in some kind of policy dilemma, we would get everybody's policy and read the exclusions because it is possible that one policy excludes other things. Does that make sense? So it's not unusual to see motorcycle exclusions in auto policies. It's not unusual to see uninsured, underinsured not applying to a motorcycle if that's the case. So, but no, I've never heard that you couldn't get medical insurance for a motorcycle.
That's what they told me, that in Pennsylvania there is no medical coverage on any motorcycle policy. And since it was a motor scooter, it was the policy was sold as a motorcycle policy.
And I don't know the answer to that. And then there's, of course, saying you can't get under your regular one because there's an exclusion. There's an exclusion for motorcycles in your regular policy, right?
I don't know. I guess I'll have to get the policy out and read it.
Yeah. And what kind of medical bills are we talking about here?
Well, fortunately, I'm retired Army. We have TRICARE. They're mostly being picked up. It just it shocked me to come to claim for medical and find out that they tell me I can't do that because in Pennsylvania you can't get covered. It just came as a surprise to me, and I just wondered what the truth on it is. I mean, our bills are being covered, I hope,
right,
by TRICARE.
Yeah, TRICARE is good too.
Yeah, but it's going to be a long, ongoing recovery.
Let's see. Yeah. Now I see it here. I'm just looking up here, right here. Oh, hold on. Let's see. Your policy of insurance provides medical payment coverage according to the laws of Pennsylvania. Medical payment coverage applies only to pedestrians when struck by your motorcycle. Medical payment coverage is pay cost treatment. Blah blah blah. That's liability. I don't know. I'm looking, but I can't quite get you a hard answer. But we can find out for you. Just double check this. So I'll if you keep listening to the show during one of the breaks, I'll take a little look in the information bucket and see what I find.
All right. Well, I've got you on iHeartRadio out here in Somerset, and I'll go ahead and keep on listening.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your time, Carl.
Yeah, we'll figure the answer out. 540-0580. Sam, you have the answer to our question already.
Yes, sir. Through a lot of research for my own motorcycle.
Tell me.
The deal is, certain companies will offer medical coverage for the motorcycle rider.
Okay.
Okay. Typically, the rider is covered by major medical, whoever his major medical provider is. I don't know why it's that way. It's just screwed up. However, the motorcycle insurance will cover the passenger. It's really messed up. But I did some hard research on this because of having a bike and not having major medical at the time. So I had to go with I think there's two companies in Pennsylvania that will offer medical coverage for the rider, and it's not very much. It's only like $25,000. Well, in a bike accident, that evaporates in the first 15 minutes.
Right.
But one of the companies is Progressive, and I don't know who the other company is. But I think there was only two. But my auto insurance carrier did not offer medical coverage for the rider.
And so, right, a lot of medical will be excluded on auto policies because they exclude the motorcycle entirely.
So typically, what covers is major medical, like you would have through your employer or whatever. So I don't know why it's that way. It's really messed up.
Well, it's because
I called numerous companies because I thought, well, this doesn't make any sense. It can't be true. Well, they all had the same story.
The answer I know is this. A lot of what you get in the way of auto insurance policies, for instance, is because the law mandates it. So it was up to the insurance companies. They would skin some of the coverage off. And my understanding is there's no law that requires somebody who sells motorcycle insurance in Pennsylvania to include medical coverage as part of the package.
Oh, no. Well, no, I was never given that impression.
Yeah, there's nothing that requires that. And as a result, a lot of them don't want to do it because exactly like you said, you can eat up a lot of medicals quickly in a motorcycle accident.
Right.
Now,
but I imagine that the insurance agent is required to let you know.
Yeah, I don't know what their duties are on all that, but I will say...
I would certainly think, because they have some type of oath or whatever that they take for being on the up and up.
Yeah, no, and I just don't know how far that goes for them. I will say this though, all bets are off when you get your policies. You're gonna have to check it very closely, and that's the same for your auto policy. A lot of people have no idea what they actually got on their auto policy.
That's the way for any policy. My business is E&O coverage. I have to read that god awful thing cover to cover every time because there's edits that they put in there that don't suit me, and I have to call them back and have them fix it. Right. Any policy you have, even if it's for ingrown toenails, read the whole thing, even the ugly fine print.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much for the help.
Now, I do have a question for you, though.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Gun carry.
Yeah.
My wife just recently was issued her concealed carry permit. Does the gun that she carries have to be in her name, or can it be one of mine?
No, she can carry one of yours.
She can?
Yeah.
Okay, and is there any family bound? Can it be, my brother's for that matter? Well,
it's interesting. If you transfer ownership of the gun, you have to do it, right? And so the question becomes a factual question, is what was the intent? And so if I loan you my gun to use...
Right.
I don't think that's an issue. And the permit to carry doesn't really run with a particular gun. And anybody can carry or use anybody else's gun. You can't just problem is you can't transfer ownership. So if you think about it that way, I guess if some prosecutor want to be really clever, they could argue the fact that you've had the same gun for 15 years is proof there's an intent to transfer ownership and that everything wasn't followed as appropriately as it should have been.
I see.
And then if there's some evidence that there was value exchange, then I think you're in real trouble.
I see.
Even just swapping two guns. Now with long arms, that's different entirely. because there's no duty to register the change in ownership. But I don't think it's unrealistic. I mean, I've lent guns to buddies before with the idea that I'm going to get it back in a hunting season or two.
Right, okay. Well, I just wanted to be sure that it was okay for her to carry one of mine.
Yes, I believe that is 100% correct. If anybody else out there has a different answer, I'd love to hear it, because I'm unaware of any requirement that prevents anybody from carrying anybody else's firearm. It's just an issue of you can't transfer ownership, and of course you can't knowingly give your firearm to a felon.
Of course.
Or other prohibited person. And there's also general civil liability if at the time you entrust the firearm to the other person, you knew or should have known reasonably that they were a danger to themselves or others. So, I won a case years ago
where...
where...
Give it to any politician.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I won a case years ago where the kid was a felon. He got out of jail. He's in his 30s. He spent years and years in state prison. He moves into his parents' house, gets access to a firearm, and then kills somebody with it. And, the argument was negligent storage of the firearm. If you have a violent felon living in your house, you can't leave the handguns laying around where he can get them. And imagine that. He killed somebody with it.
Yeah.
All right, my friend.
Carl. Thank you.
540-0580. Jay, what's going on?
Hello?
Jay.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I had a question about... Okay, I do some freelance graphic and web design.
Uh-huh.
And I get customers that I do logos for. They say to me, hey, can you get us like some T-shirts or some caps or whatever? And I know the resources to get wholesale imprintable apparel, but I can't get access to them because I don't have a reseller's license, wholesale, whatever you want to call it. And I was wondering, do I need to have an EIN or a tax ID and be an actual business to get the reseller's license so I can have access to those wholesale resources?
The short answer is I don't know. The long answer is if you're going to be in business, then you should have a tax ID number.
Okay.
And you should probably see a CPA and or a lawyer to get things filed for you. There's online services that do that as well, although I don't recommend those.
Okay.
But I would start with the CPA. But, of course, once you open up a business, then you get stuck with all the things you got to do as part of that. And so, you get inundated with all kinds of mail saying, file this, do that. May have to collect sales tax depending on what you're selling, things like that. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, good luck. Got to go to break.
You fellas want to read me my rights?
You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have your face kicked in by me. You have the right to have your balls stomped by him.
I'll waive my rights. You fellas want to read me my rights?
There you go. Joe, what's going on?
Hi. I was just wondering, is it legal to buy a gun in PA if you're a convicted felon? I mean, like a rifle or a shotgun to go hunting or anything?
No, not at all. If you're a convicted felon or have a firearms disability, under Pennsylvania law, you can't have any gun. Under federal law, you can still get a black powder or primitive weapon in most circumstances. So you have to be careful to make sure that if you have a PA prohibition, you get it lifted. And if you have just a federal prohibition, then you have to be careful about what you get because it can't be a modern firearm. So I would always consult with an attorney. If I had a criminal record that could disable me, which would be any misdemeanor that carried more than 2 years as a possible sentence, any misdemeanor of domestic violence or family violence, basically, or any felony or greater, you're going to need to consult with an attorney on a case-by-case basis to see what you can and can't do. But as a general rule, you shouldn't own, possess, or buy a firearm.
Okay. And that wouldn't exclude my wife from buying firearms, though, would it?
No, absolutely not. Your wife can buy 1,000 of them. The trick becomes making sure that you don't have access to them such that the government could argue joint and constructive possession. And further, if she bought them with an eye towards letting you use them, that's a separate crime by her as well.
Right. Well, I understand that.
Yeah, I know. Just throwing that out there so you know. Don't say I didn't say so.
I wouldn't do that. All right. Well, thanks for taking my question.
All right. Yeah, and then you get your Miranda rights read to you if you violate the law, so you got to be careful.
Okay.
All right, my friend.
Thank you.
540-0580. Let's talk about the Miranda rights for a quick second. 540-0580 is the talk line number. If you got some legal questions, we'll field them here. But let's just talk about Miranda for a quick second, because everybody always comes to me and goes, well, they didn't read me my rights, so I can get my case thrown out, right? The answer is no, you can't just get your case thrown out because they didn't read you your rights. The only requirement to reading your rights is so that they can take your statements. And it was a prophylactic warning, and Miranda versus Arizona was the case. The Supreme Court of the United States said, we're so sick and tired of trying to figure out whether people knew their rights or where their rights or not. We're going to require prophylactically the police to notify you of your rights before they begin questioning when you're in a custodial detention or the functional equivalent of an arrest. And traffic stops do not count. That's first rule. Normal, routine traffic stops, that is. Investigatory detentions really don't count either. But if you're in the functional equivalent of an arrest or you're literally under arrest, one of the two, a custodial detention or an arrest, then you have the right to be warned that anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and that you have the right to remain silent and you have the right to counsel. There's no specific language either. It's just that the police have sort of standardized it over the years. But it doesn't have to be read in any particular order, and the words don't have to be exact. It just has to notify you of your right to counsel and your right to remain silent. Basically it. But the fact you're not read your rights is irrelevant, except that statements taken after you went into custodial detention, but before your rights were read to you, are not admissible against you. Also, if you gave a consent to a search at a time you were entitled to Miranda, and the consent could be tainted by the failure to give you Miranda, then the search may be invalid as well, and any evidence obtained from that search may be able to be excluded from your criminal trial. And that's a principle. We have this exclusionary rule that allows us to keep things out of trial. And people say, oh, you're just letting the criminals go free. But the idea is to give the government an incentive to do it right. In other words, the government's being told, if you don't do this the proper way, if you don't do this the right way, then you can't put this evidence in against these people. And the courts developed that, and it's not embodied in the Constitution anywhere. The courts did it as a remedy to what they thought was poor law enforcement techniques, unfair law enforcement techniques, abuse by law enforcement going on around the country. A lot of people have big issues with that and don't necessarily agree with that situation. But my thought on the matter would be that the exclusionary rule has, in the long run, made law enforcement much sharper. I, in fact, remember winning a DUI one time because the officer had entered somebody's house without a warrant, although it was kind of an interesting fact scenario. And he called me up a few weeks later just to go over what he could have done and how he could have done it in a way that wouldn't have violated the Constitution, which I had no problem telling him. And we broke it down and just thought about different ways because it was a unique factual scenario. And a lot of police officers really do want to try to honor the Constitution while effectively policing the citizenry. And that's all you can ask for in our society. I mean, that's the best of both worlds. And so my hats go off because I do know a ton of police officers whose goal it is not to violate the Constitution and not to do those things. We have the exclusionary rule to prevent systemic abuse, to prevent people from being tempted, and also to prevent their overseers from trying to make grasps at numbers or other things, numbers of arrests or overreach and force police into bad scenarios, because the police officer can say, I can't do that, I'm not allowed to. Anyhow, 540-0580, 540-0580. So call me your legal questions. We'll answer them here on the air. We're on until 3 o'clock. If at any time you need a lawyer throughout the week, you can look us up at romingerlaw.com, or you can go to and call us at 241-6070 on your telephone, 241-6070 with any of your legal problems. We've got a full staff of attorneys. I've got Steve Snyder doing civil law, all kinds of property use issues. He's very experienced in the construction industry. We've got Drew Deo. We've got Robert Culling, Vinny Manfredo, and Lee Mandarino. Lee's doing a lot of personal injury work for us. He used to do that in the grand old state of New York, and now he's cross-licensed in this state as well. So we also have ability to go to New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So if you do have we don't really want to go to New York if we don't have to, but if you have a problem in New York and you need a little help, we can certainly point you in the right direction. We've been to New Jersey on a number of things. That's an interesting state. Steve goes down there quite a bit. But I'm just Pennsylvania, and that's about as much law as I need to know. I don't want to really have to learn a lot of other states' law. And that's the other thing to keep in mind. Whatever state you're in, that state's law applies. And a lot of folks seem to forget that. And so sometimes even here on the show, we'll get a call about Maryland. They say, well, tell me what to do. It can't be that different in Maryland. Well, it can be. Joe, you're on with Carl Rominger. The talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on, Joe?
Oh, hey. I've been listening to you guys talking about different things, and I want to make comment about these gay marriages. Something I haven't heard over the years about the legal rights of a gay marriage and so on and so forth. What about the fact that a man and a woman's made to reproduce? How can two men or two women reproduce?
Well, that's
the main objective of a man and a woman being married.
Well, that's the question. And if that is the main objective and the rational basis test applies, then the states can regulate gay marriage.
Yeah, I don't know. I believe in people's freedom rights, but I'm sorry to say, if I see two guys holding hands and kissing in public, it turns my stomach.
Yeah, and the answer is that's everybody's got their personal preferences. The question, though, then becomes what should the law do with the situation, and that's the interplay with the 14th Amendment that we have.
Yeah, but I don't think the law has anything to do with I don't think the law should have anything to do with enforcing two men and two women getting married. It like some guy said earlier, it's coming down through history. Even though they didn't get married, like you said, some religions didn't get married, but still, it was a man and a woman. As far as I can go back in history, it's always been a man and woman.
And at least in marriages, yeah. And I don't know the exact answer for you. All I can tell you is that it comes down to this: how far should government go or not go? And some people would argue, and it's interesting because this is, Glenn Beck always says the left meets the right somewhere in a big circle. If you're a true libertarian, right, and you don't believe the government should regulate anything, then the question is, why is government even regulating marriage at all? I mean, why give tax breaks to married people? Why be involved at all? Why do anything with marriage? Why not just leave marriage up to the churches and the people?
I agree with that. I agree. The government's getting involved too much, how to raise your children, and that's why I think we're having a lot of problems in this country. They took the rights away from the cops, the parents, and the teachers, and the kids are running amok these days.
Yeah, well, remember that only one of those three is not the government. Keep that in the back of your head. That's the dilemma. So if you want strong teachers and strong police, that means strong government. But the problem is, in the absence of strong parents, you probably do need strong government, right?
Well,
I mean, if we had
the more rules they make, the more laws they make, the worse they seem to get. They're making all these gun laws, and every day you hear murder on the
well, listen, cocaine
else.
this is my favorite thing about guns, right? They got to make a million gun laws. Cocaine's illegal. We have, for some reason, there's billions and billions of dollars of it moving through the American economy, and it's wholly illegal. So the idea or the notion that somehow making something illegal is going to keep you and I or other people who want it from getting it is just a fallacy of law enforcement. In fact, if incarcerating a lot of people and having a lot of laws was a guarantee of public safety, America would be the safest country in the history of the world because we incarcerate a higher percentage of our individuals than anybody else, China included. All right, my friend.
I just don't go along with this gay marriage. Okay, I know they can't help being what they are probably, but I mean, it should be like in the past. They should not flaunt their love affair in public because most guys, like, what do you call us, man and woman, don't like it. Well, I'd like to make one more comment about government.
Yeah, go ahead.
As long as we're not talking about government. They're talking about budgets. But, they're cutting Medicare, they're cutting Social Security, they're cutting school teachers. Why don't they cut foreign aid? That's the big issue. Why are they cutting the American citizen and giving money all over the world to people that don't even like us in the first place?
Joe, if you could stay listening, I got to get a break, but I'm going to hang up on you. But stay listening. I'm going to address the foreign aid thing a little bit.
I'll listen on the radio.
All right, my friend. 540-0580. We get back. I'm going to address foreign aid, talk to David and Jay. Michael Parks, are you out there at the mega car sale?
Hey, Carl, how you doing, buddy?
Good.
Hey, I got a problem here. Maybe you can answer it. I got my 18-year-old son here. They're trying to put him into a BMW. Yes or no?
Hell no.
I'll tell you what, it is sweet out here, Carl. This is the mega car sale. This is the final day. The Faulkner family of dealerships have brought out hundreds of their vehicles all in one place at one time. And as I mentioned, if you are looking for a BMW, a Mercedes, if you're looking for a Subaru, Mazda, Cadillac, Scion, Toyota, Honda, anything that you're looking for, price range, they got it out here, and they're all in one place at one time. So that's what makes it cool, is that you can come over here to the Colonial Park Mall, you can walk up and down the top of the lot, and you can see all the vehicles in one place. This way you're not driving around to all the dealerships. And these guys over here have been great. It's the Faulkner family. These guys have been doing it for over 80 years. And they work great with my son. Sat over here, find out what he's looking for, and they're trying to make him the best possible deal, and also trying to find the best option. So that's one of the great things about when you deal with the Faulkner family. But again, this sale ends at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So if you're looking for a car for that teen or that college student, get out here. We're getting to wrap things up. We want to thank all the folks who came over here and see us here on WHP 580. So back to you, Carl. Michael Parks. Mega Car Sale, Colonial Park Mall, WHP.
And this is the car. I mean, this is the place you said you were going to buy your son a car, right?
Well, we're thinking about this is where he takes over, Carl.
Ah, he's at that stage of life.
Yeah, don't you think it's time to kick him out of the nest?
Yeah, just throw him right out the nest and see if he hits the ground hard or if he learns to fly. That's what you got to do.
Hey, Carl, but I'll tell you what, kick him out of the nest into a BMW doesn't sound too bad, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. Make sure it's convertible, though. We land right in the seat. All right, my friend.
All right, take care.
540-0580. Jay, what's going on?
Hey, Carl, I had no intention to call today. It's too nice. I was out in the yard and didn't plan on it. And I didn't hear your show yesterday, unfortunately, so I'm sure I didn't want to get into a 2-hour discussion about the same subject.
Right.
But I had to respond to Joe. I know he's an older. I'm 60, and I'm straight. And I know Joe's older, and I guess it sounded like kind of, I don't want to say blue-collar, because I think there is a difference in people based on education in terms of how they think, what they think, not exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing he said that really, I don't want to get into it too much, one thing he said that really bugged me, and I'd like to, there's no legal basis. Whoever said that marriage is for procreation? That is a religious thing. I don't know. Frankly, I think religion was invented by man as much as anything else, but I've been married 3 times, and I guarantee you 2 of them there was no intention to procreate.
Right.
So I kind of resent that idea. And yes, I am for gay marriage, and yes, I have some gay friends, and I work in a business that is welcoming to gays and openly, a lot of openly admitted gays.
Mm-hmm.
But legally, where are these, especially North Carolina? Well, again, I don't want to go over the whole thing. I don't want to get all the Bible beaters calling up.
No. Well, the short answer is where we're at legally is all going to come down to how we interpret the 14th Amendment. So,
yeah, I'm just saying I don't, but when people say that's what it's for, or that's it almost sounded like he was making a legal statement, I should say. And nowhere do I ever see anything in legality where it says.
No, if the issue is the government only has to have a rational basis, okay? And here's the irony of this. Congress and the legislatures, it's been said by the courts, need to have a rational basis, not even the right rational basis. They just have to articulate a reason they want to do something. That's the rational basis test.
And they never do. They never, I shouldn't say never.
Well, no, but they do in the record and sometimes in the preambles, but all they'd have to do is say this. Finding that it's necessary to encourage procreation, and it being recognized that procreation is best done through the union of a man and a woman, we find that there should be no gay marriage. If that's the rational basis, that's the end of the inquiry.
Well, I think we've got to, my whole thing of the system is, and a lot of, and I'll give it to school boards especially and local government, they do things that are inexplicable, and they don't even discuss it. They don't even tell you why they did it. I mean, there was a recent incident in Annabelle, Cleona about the banning of a child's book. That they won't even make a statement,
right?
And so, but I just kind of it's like people shouldn't be together because they can't make babies, and they can adopt. But again, I don't understand. But then I'm from a different area, so maybe I'm just not as
I don't know.
As some folks, but that was the only thing. I mean, I would have let it go except for the fact that logic escaped me.
Well, I believe that making babies is like any other great endeavor. You should practice. All right, Jay, I'm going to let you go.
Okay. Take care.
540-0580. Doug, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl, a gentleman called and asked about letting his wife carry one of his guns.
Yes.
I've always assumed that if I bought a gun, my wife tells me what's hers is hers, what's mine is hers, and that this is, once you acquire something in a marriage, it belongs to both parties. Common law. Is that what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, we call it entirety's property, and that would be a good argument. The short answer is one of you is the registered transferee of it and the only one that's available to transfer it. But in a divorce, the court would certainly recognize it as marital property.
Okay. The other thing is, people I work with know that to be generous, I'm called a gun nut. And they'll ask me questions, and if they say, well, I've got Grandpa's old gun, I want to get a permit and carry it, I always advise them not to. Go buy a gun, and I tell them, never carry a gun that doesn't have a paper trail leading to you.
Right.
You don't want to have some used gun and use it, then find out that it was used in a crime sometime, and you can't prove when it came into your possession.
Yeah, and you can get. I mean, in other words, the statute allows for a grandfather to hand a gun down to a grandson or a son, etc.
I know. I did one to my son-in-law.
But it's still problematic, like you say, because later on there's always questions of where it came from and where did Grandpa get the gun and how do you prove it came into Grandpa's hands? And you're right. If you're going to be out on the street gunning somebody down, it's one less issue that we're going to have to hurdle with a jury someday when you're overzealously prosecuted.
Why are you carrying an unregistered gun? Do you want to throw it down? Do you want to throw away a piece or something to plant?
Right.
You should keep it clean. Make sure everything you carry can be traced back to you. So there's no way that it can be you can make any false allegations against you. That's what I advise people. That and go talk to a lawyer.
Yeah. No, I agree, Doug. I like your advice.
Okay.
I got to go to break here.
Okay.
540-0580, Carl Rominger here. JC's in a tie and looking sharp over there. Go to RomingerLaw.com if you need a lawyer throughout the week. 241-6070 is the law office number. But we'll be back for another hour to answer your legal questions. 540-0580.